Okay, I think we'll begin at 6 o'clock. Thank you all for coming. I'm Paul Tisdale. I'm the councilman in Ward 5. And for those of you who may be new or may think you're in Ward 5, let me tell you where Ward 5 is. South of Pass Road, it's from Beauvoir Road, west to Gulfport. North of Pass Road, if you know where the fire station is, the Bay Vista Fire Station, roughly from there west to Gulfport. So I don't have any portion of Bay Vista. I don't have any portion of Lake Villa subdivision or Ancient Oaks. Ancient Oaks is across the bay. So it's a very small ward. It's the most compact ward. Probably 35 or 40% of the residents live in apartments, and at election time they don't like you to campaign, so that's why I come to your neighborhood twice every 4 years. I can get around pretty much. There's a sign-in sheet on the table. If you've not signed in, it's not a college course, it's not for credit, you don't have to sign in, but it's nice to know who is here. Typically, we have about 35 or 40 people at these ward meetings. We have 2 a year. I put out, for those of you who may not be aware, I put out a weekly newsletter. I push it to you by email every Sunday morning. I've been doing that for several years. And if you'd like to receive it, be sure and sign in on the sign-in sheet and give me your email address. I'll add it to the list. You can ask to be removed at any time. You'll notice at the top of the agenda, if you did not get an agenda, there are some there on the table that you passed as you entered. You'll see my name, that's my cell phone number, that's my email address, and that's my website. And if you call, be sure to call in the middle of supper time, okay, without fail. It makes me feel important. But most of you know that if you call me, I call you back usually within a couple of hours, or I'll arrange to come meet you personally where you live. All right, that being said, I'd like to introduce Mr. Mike Leonard, who's the Chief Administrative Officer. I don't see the mayor. I know he was out of town, but Mr. Leonard's just maybe 25 words on Hurricane Ida. We thought it would be a bigger thing. We were fortunate, thought it'd be a bigger thing than it was. The Pops Ferry Bridge, and just a few words on the water rate increase that's coming in October. You may want to, anybody who's speaking tonight, if you would be here at the podium, this mic picks up the sound for the video. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. And good to be here. He usually makes me go last. This is great. I love it. I'll make it home for happy hour. So I hope you'll have a chance to look at this thing I've got laid out on the table over here. That is one of the products that's being produced from what we're calling our West Biloxi Master Plan. I think I don't need to tell you, but West Biloxi's been on the wrong end of the stick for a while. We've spent several $100 million on East Biloxi, all new water, sewer, 100-year-old stuff, all replaced, all brand new roads. Some of the places, little roads in East Biloxi look like they're better than they ever have. We've got a lot of new developments going up north of the bay, a lot of new infrastructure going in place. But here in West Biloxi, we have today the oldest infrastructure in the city, and it's fallen apart. It really is in poor shape. One of the things you look at, we were talking earlier with some of you about the fact that some of our water lines, a lot of our water lines are old transite pipe, which is kind of asbestos pipe, and water lines which are grossly undersized for the population they're serving, which means we've got problems with water pressure and so forth for fires and so forth. What we're trying to do is come up with a master plan of a series of, say, $1-2 million projects that we can put in budgets year after year, and are used to go after more federal funding if we have projects already developed. So we've got an A&E firm working, an architectural and engineering firm working on that master plan right now, coming up with and prioritizing as best we can the things that need to be done in West Biloxi. I'm the acting engineer these days. So let me just tell you a couple of engineer function things. One of the projects that is under design to be built this year is a new water tank at Bay Vista. Bay Vista water tank, that's behind Fire Station number 5, just down the road here, has been out of service for more than a decade. And because of that, we've got water pressure issues in West Biloxi. So we're going to put a new well in for that tank. The Tanglewood area, which is technically Ward 3 and Ward 4, just up the road here in Bay Vista area, again, some of the oldest infrastructure pre-annexation, pre-city of Biloxi infrastructure. We did half of the water lines in Tanglewood last year. We were about to award a contract to do the other half this year. And we're going to move on into the Fire Station 5 that I talk about as the second busiest fire station in the city. I'm stealing your thunder, Chief. Second busiest, and it's the smallest. So we're adding on to that fire station this year. What is it I'm supposed to talk about, Paul? You wanted me to talk about Hurricane Ida, which we got
25 words on Ida, the
right.
Pops Ferry Bridge, PP
right.
project.
We got very lucky with Hurricane Ida. The FEMA is going to pay us for emergency services and cleanup, but we're not going to get any building repairs or pier repairs or any of that sort of thing. But we're moving on that. Hurricane Zeta that preceded that hurricane, as you know, that was October of last year. We spent $5 million in debris removal, just debris removal, and we're still working on a lot of the repairs. We haven't gotten 1 red cent from FEMA yet, not 1 cent. We're promised and promised and promised. We took a line of credit of $10 million to do the debris removal and other repairs, and fortunately, our good friends at People's Bank gave us a pretty good interest rate. It's almost free money, but we've got to pay it back at some point. And so we're kind of hoping that FEMA will come through for us. Pops Ferry Bridge, okay, this is one that the project never stops giving. $125 million project. We've heard all this before. That includes the roadway and the bridge and all the acquisition of the property, which includes almost 59 houses that we have to take. That's basically between the end of the bridge and the Margaret Sherry. Pretty much every house down that side. That's why it's a $125 million project. It's all of the right-of-way acquisition and alignment is ready to go, and we're just looking for construction money. Fortunately, there's a lot of talk about infrastructure coming our way, so we'll see. It's not designed yet. Design's going to be an easy, quick part of it. The hard part's buying all the property. The mayor has floated a trial balloon about maybe doing a toll bridge. We have a company that came to see us that said they could have a bridge up in 3 to 4 years. But mayor's basically out there trolling, trying to get people to tell him what they think and whether that's going to sell or not. 3 to 4 years sounds great, but it would be a double 4-lane high bridge without a gate. So, but that might be, people may be upset about having to pay a toll, perhaps $1 or $1.50 to go to the grocery store. So we're not sure how that's going to sell, but that's out there. Water rate increase, fortunately, for the first time 3 years ago, for the first time in a very, very long time, we made enough money selling water and sewer to actually break even. Before that, we were not breaking even. We're losing money every year and having to put money from the general fund into the water sewer fund. So as of 4 years ago, we started to gain ground, and actually the council gave us a 3% increase over 4 years that will end this September 30th. Council has approved a 2% increase starting in October, and that will become effective when you get your bills in October. You won't, I don't think, notice much of a difference with a 2% increase, but it's making a difference from us having to borrow money just to do projects. And that gives us an ability to make enough money on selling water to replace water lines and do these projects we've been talking about. There's also a trash increase. That's one that we can't do much about. As you know, our trash contract is with the Utility Authority of Harrison County. So that it's basically a pass-through. Whatever we get charged, we charge you. And they've got a CPI and Consumer Price Index built into that contract. So that drives our trash price from $15.10 a month to $15.75 a month. It's going to go up that much this year. That's effective. The first month will be October. I think I got everything. You've got some great. We're just finishing the budget for this year. We've all been in lots and lots of meetings, workshops, working on the budget. The city is anticipating much better revenues in the upcoming year. Our numbers are very good for gaming and sales tax, and ad valorem is up because of all the new properties, especially over in the north part of the city. And as a result, we're going to be able to do some pretty amazing things, like, for example, putting 16 new officers on the beat. We are not defunding the police in Biloxi. We're refunding the police. We will have more cops on the beat next year than this year, and you'll have a safer Biloxi. We've got, as you're going to hear from Chief Miller, we've got one hell of an outstanding police department. Now, fire is a different story. The first thing we've got to do is fill all the vacancies. We just hired 10 firefighters to fill the vacancies that we already had. And we're applying for a grant from Safer Grant as Homeland Security to hire another 15 firefighters. Our problem with our firefighters is we've got enough to staff the trucks, but once we got the truck staff, nobody gets any time off. So the only way to give anybody time off in the fire department is for somebody to cover for them in overtime. And some of these guys, they love the overtime, but we're wearing them out. So we just so we'll be adding 15 additional firefighters. We're adding public works workers, 5 to the north and 5 to the south of the city. And we're adding a crew to our Parks and Recs department to do additional. I think we're aware that the city just really needs to be cleaned up a little better than we're doing. So, and we're giving these guys the equipment. The chief could probably quote this better, but that police officer that we put on the beat, by the time we buy his car and his gun and his radio and all the other equipment, the vests and everything else that goes with that police officer, they're a lot more expensive than you think. They're worth everything we pay for them, but they're a lot more expensive. So 16 police officers is a good chunk of change, but we need them. The Pops Ferry Road extension, for the third year consecutively, we applied for a grant to build the Pops Ferry Road. It's designed, it's ready. We applied to the Gulf Coast Restoration Fund for a grant. We applied to the RAISE grant, which is a U.S. Department of Transportation grant. If we can get the construction money, we can start the project this year. I know it's getting old. It's one of the oldest projects we've got, but it's just one that we need some help. We need some state or federal help to be able to build that road. But we've already spent $7 or $8 million buying all the property, so it's ready to go. The CSX is ready to give us the crossing, and we could put that job out to bid tomorrow if we had to. I think that's probably. Otherwise, I'm going to cut into these guys' time.
No, don't do that,
Yeah.
but stick around later for all the questions.
Oh, Q&A, okay, good stuff. Well, I see you got engineering later, so. All right, Paul.
Okay, good deal. Thank you, Mike. Next, we have the fire chief, brand new fire chief. An unlined face, still smiles, has a sense of humor, Nick Geiser.
Thank you, Dr. Tisdale.
And he's a good guy. He knows his stuff, and he's a local guy. So.
Thank you. As he said, I'm Nick Geiser. Some of y'all know me. I see some familiar faces. Some of y'all don't. I grew up right down off Atkinson Road on Greenwood Drive in Tanglewood subdivision. That is, I guess, Ward 3, but ward lines have changed so much in the past. Just to give you a little bit about myself, I've been with the fire department. If y'all haven't read the articles that have been put out, I was with the fire department for 17 years now. Graduate of Biloxi High, graduate of USM with a double major in management and accounting. Kind of rose through the ranks. For the past 2.5 years, I did the training chief for the fire department, and I did the emergency management for the city. So I've learned a lot about some of the things at City Hall that I did not know prior to coming off the line. And I've helped train a couple of different groups of firefighters as we try to build up. And as I've said, we are having not necessarily an issue of hiring, but a recruitment issue. When I came on 17 years ago, we probably had 200 applicants, and we would give a test once a year, and out of that, we would hire big groups. Y'all all remember the annexation of Woolmarket. We were hiring 20, 21, 15. Nowadays, the last group that I hired was 5. So it's an issue. So if you know of any young men and women that are looking for a career, and I say career because it is a 30-year retirement right now. We'd love to see it go back to 25 years to make it a little bit more enticing, but it's a 30-year retirement, but it's still a good career to go into. So a couple of the talking points that Dr. Tisdale has for me is smoke detector program. If y'all have been around, y'all know that October is our big push to get smoke detectors installed in every house that we can. And the smoke detectors, they're free of charge. We bring them out. We will do all the installation. Problem is now is with the COVID restrictions and that sort of thing, it's being able to come into your home. We are still welcome to come into your home. We will allow it, but we won't be able to do the door-to-door like we've had in the past, where we kind of blanket a particular area every Saturday for the month of October. What we typically do is now we're just going to ask you, call our number, 435-6200, request. And we do this throughout the year. We will come in, we will install as long as you're okay. We bring our own tools. We'll tell you where we're going to install them, make sure it's okay with you, and tell you why we're going to do it. Whether it be outside a bedroom, near a kitchen, we aren't going to put it right above the stove to where you hear it every 2 seconds. But it's a proven fact that smoke detectors save lives. So we really believe in it. It is funded. It doesn't come out of our budget, doesn't come out of y'all's tax-paying dollars. It is funded by the government, and we are happy to do it every year, day in and day out. So if you know anybody, if you have an elderly neighbor that needs it, please call us. Check with them, of course, but please call us, give us the address. There's a simple form, a little one-page form. We will come out, we'll have a crew. Either our Fire Station 5, if it's in this area, will come out and install it, or if they can't get to it, if they're busy doing other tasks that we've tasked them to, we have a fire prevention division that will be happy to help. Mike had touched on the planned improvements to Station 5. So Station 5, we run, because this is such a busy area out here, I'm sure y'all hear them quite a bit. Because it's so busy, we actually staff it with 2 trucks right now. So we have 2 units. We have to staff every engine that we have with 3 people minimum. And as y'all probably saw within the past year, we managed to drop our fire rating to a 2, which is the best in the state, but we like to work to a 1. Part of getting to that 1 is some of the infrastructure work. So we've satisfied everything that we can, and that's where we are at a 2. To get to that 1, it comes to those water lines that Mr. Leonard spoke of. We've got to beef up those water lines because they are dated. The amount of water that we can generate from our truck, we can actually suck a hydrant dry now, and you'll see our big 4-inch lines. So that is a huge aspect of bringing that up. The other aspect is personnel. If you look into any big municipality, a Memphis or a New York or Atlanta, they run 4 to 5 guys per truck, and it's a safety issue. And it's really, we never go anywhere by ourselves. So being that Station 5 is a older structure, by doing this expansion, we're going to be able to allow, right now, we have enough beds for 6 guys or 6 personnel to ride that truck. We've got 3 on one engine, we've got 3 on another, and they are running constantly. It's one of the busiest in the city. What we would be able to do if all the grants and everything, right now, currently as it stands, we wouldn't even be able to put a 4th person on each of those units because we don't even have the space. So that's where this comes into play, and this is a future goal. We would like to become the first city in the state of Mississippi to reach that 1 rating, and that is a long-term goal. It isn't going to happen today, it isn't going to happen next year, but it's a 4 to 5 year project if we can build our numbers, recruitment effort, diversify our group of men and women, and do the whole thing and just make a better representation for Biloxi as a whole.
Piece of cake, huh? Did you mention those smoke detectors are free? You provide
Yes, sir.
everything and it's free.
Yeah. No cost to their taxes, no cost to our budget.
You have a question?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, Chief, I would like to compliment you on Station 5. Because I just recently saw a report in the email that Station 5 almost has 6 calls a day, and some of your stations have 1. So whatever you're doing, I like those guys. I know them, take care of them, because they take care of us. Because they are the busiest station in all of the 10 stations you have.
Yes, sir.
And so whatever you can do to help those guys.
Yes, sir. Well, I think the mayor and Mr. Leonard.
They do have the work, because I go out to Station 10, which has 1 call a day.
Right.
It's a brand new facility, and it just makes me wonder, okay, we gotta do something better for our guys.
Yes, sir.
Because you are the busiest.
Yes, sir. And we agree. We agree with you wholeheartedly.
Keep pushing.
Yes, sir.
All right?
That's our plan.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Next on the agenda is Mr. Jerry Creel. He's the Director of Community Development, and this was an issue that came up in the Development Review Committee, and I don't think it's been to the Planning Commission yet, has it? But for the folks who live around Edgewater Park, Grandview Apartments, there's an empty parcel there on the beach at the foot of Grandview Drive and Highway 90. And it's just east of Edgewater Park, but this is going to be of concern to the folks who live in that area. Mr. Creel.
Thank you, Dr. Tisdale. The property that he is, well, first of all, you probably know what we do in our department, development, rezoning, building inspections, code enforcement, floodplain management, historic preservation, and also the visitor center. But the property that Dr. Tisdale is talking about is the piece of property that used to be the old Breakers Inn property. And over the years, we've had a number of projects that have been proposed for there. The last project that we looked at before was a hotel that would be going in on the front beach and then apartments going in right behind it. But this last development, and most of those have not worked out, but this last developer that came in is wanting to put an RV park there. And his initial drawing showed that there'd be about 98 spaces in there, which actually looks like too many. It's very preliminary. He's been through twice. He's revised his drawing once, but we're now reaching the point where it's time for him to get an engineer involved and to actually design it the way the ordinance would allow it to go in. They're very aware that there were some covenants that were put in place that would require a separation between this property and the Edgewater Park subdivision. This developer has agreed to comply with all of those covenants that were approved. So he's not been hesitant to agree to move forward with what he's doing. So I would expect at one of the next DRC meetings, he'll actually come in with the engineer drawing for that piece of property. And once the Development Review Committee is satisfied that it meets all of our ordinances, then it would move to the Planning Commission for a public hearing. So just stay tuned for that. We'll see what happens. The front part of the property is already zoned for an RV park, but maybe halfway back, it changes to RM30, which is residential multifamily property. And because of that, and because he's wanting to use the entire piece of property, there will be a zoning change hearing for that property on the north end. So you'll see an ad in the paper, or you'll see a public notice or signs placed out there to alert you to that. The other thing that we get questions about is the connector road for Gulf Coast Community College, and I can tell you we have not received anything on that. I would expect that probably since the community college finished up the road, the access road on Highway 49, that there'll probably be some discussion to start on that. And when that happens, we'll make sure that the neighborhood is aware of it so that you can chime in on it. As far as some development projects in Ward 5, the Starbucks at the mall, they've completed what we call the white box. One contractor was given the award to build what's called the white box, which is essentially the blank building. And now they'll turn it over to the Starbucks contractors, who will come in and actually finish out the Starbucks theme on the inside. We don't have a projected completion date on that yet, but you could probably see that the outside is for the most part finished, except for, the paving going in out there. So keep an eye on that. Also, going into the old Steinmart location at Edgewater Village, they put up the sign yesterday and today, the America's Thrift Store is going to be locating in there. And those stores are always a big draw. They generate a lot of traffic. So they finished up with the work on the inside, and you'll probably see some activity starting on the outside very shortly. Also, this is not Ward 5, but it's close to it. The other former Steinmart location, the Furniture Mart location over next to the former Walmart location, is called Bargain Bin now. And I don't know if you've had a chance to go to the Bargain Bin yet, but they have a very unique way of operating. They get in a truck of merchandise every week, and the cost for everything in the store starts off at $8. And then each day after that, it goes down. Goes down $2 each day after that. So by the end of the week, if there's anything left over, they just put it all together, and it's, make us an offer on it. And then the next week they get in another truck. This past week they opened up, they said they had about 75 people waiting at the door to get in. And I went over there Monday, and it was a madhouse on the inside. It's worth going in there to take a look, just to see the people going through these bins, to try to find a treasure in there.
Any fire trucks in there?
Okay. We might want to keep one handy. From a code enforcement standpoint, I'll just tell you, we have the council and the mayor were good enough to allow us to get one new code enforcement officer this year. We have 4 now that cover the entire city. You probably noticed the impact that they're having by seeing all the piles of lumber and tree limbs and everything else that's all over the city out near the street. So the new code enforcement officer has really had an impact on the progress that we're making. We're trying to work out getting those piles picked up right now, and we've had meetings with the public works director and with the chief administrative officer to work out a way to get those piles picked up. But bear with us, we are accomplishing a lot more. We're getting properties cleaned up that haven't been cleaned up in a long time, and all that will do is help us improve property values around the city. So with that, I think that covers pretty much everything on my list.
Gary?
Yes, sir.
One question, one comment. Comment, first of all, thank you for the code enforcement, the young lady that's been assigned to our area. See her coming through frequently. She talks to neighbors. She's doing a fantastic job.
Thank you.
Good job. And you had mentioned that your office handles the floodplain stuff. Is there, is there any future on FEMA redesigning their floodplain? We live in the enclave. It's never flooded, yet half of it's in the flood zone. I'll rephrase the question. So regarding the floodplain, our subdivision, the enclave subdivision, it's never flooded, but half of it's in the flood zone, half of it is not. And as a result, those in the flood zone obviously have to pay more insurance. I've been hearing for years that FEMA is going to come and do another assessment. Do you know anything about that?
I can speak to that, and I don't want to dominate too much of the time tonight because we've got a workshop on that scheduled for next week. What's happened is that FEMA is initiating a new program called Risk 2.0, and it will go into effect October the 1st. Now, we're trying to gather information about this because we were not notified about the details about it, so we've had to go out and try to find out as much as we can. But essentially what's going to happen is that FEMA is going to do away with the maps that we use now in the flood insurance program. And what will happen is that each property now will be individually assessed by satellite based on what FEMA considers their exposure to risk. In other words, they'll look at things like, is this a house on a slab? Is it a house that's slightly elevated or more elevated? What is its proximity to the nearest water body that would cause flooding to come in? There are a lot of things that are involved in this, and it's going to be very complicated. So what we've agreed to do, the council, we requested a workshop next week, and we're going to do a presentation before them. But if you saw the article in the newspaper that FEMA had released to them, it said that all three counties on the coast are going to be significantly affected by a rise in the cost of premiums. And 89% of the policyholders in Harrison County are going to see an increase in their flood insurance premiums of up somewhere between 12 and maybe 18%, depending on risk. But if you want to come to the workshop, you're certainly welcome, and we're going to cover everything that we know about it. Then we're asking for one change to our floodplain ordinance, asking the council to consider one change that would help us maintain the rating and the discounts that we're allowed to provide to the property owners. So even if the premiums go up, if we can make this change, we feel confident that we can still provide the 25% discount to the people that have policies in the flood zone, and the 10% discount that people are receiving. All right, if you have a policy and you're inside the flood zone, you should be getting a 25% discount on your flood insurance premiums because we have a 5. We're the best rating in the state, best rated city in the state. If you have a flood insurance policy and you're outside the flood zone, you should be getting a 10% discount. Now, what's going to change with this, based on what we've been informed of so far, is that there will be no more 10% discount, that everybody in the city, based on our rating, would get if you have a policy, would get a 25% rating. But we've got to see what kind of increases in the premiums they're going to assess before we know how much that'll be. So anyway, we'll be talking about that next week at this council meeting, and you're welcome to come. Thank you. Okay.
Just touching base with you on when is code enforcement going to start enforcing that gate that's supposed to have no ingress egress that continually remains open in that RV park into Pine Grove is going to stop. I mean, I have sent, as you know, no less than 25 emails to you guys because it keeps getting open. It's not supposed to be open. They literally will open it on whim and let traffic go in and out of there. When they were really busy for that Memorial Day weekend, they put the people that were partying in that RV park in charge of opening and closing it. They were nowhere around. And they let everybody out on Pine Grove the day after Memorial Day. So I want to know when it's going to stop. I mean, technically emergency, it means emergency, not when you feel like it.
Well, Mr. Newman, who contacted me early last week, before I got your email about it, and he said, I just want to let you know before you get a complaint that we're having to use that to get out because the arm on our main gate is broken. He said, we've got a part ordered for it, and as soon as the part comes in, we'll fix that and we'll go back to using it. Now, let me just address a couple of things here. Number one, I send people out there. I get a report that the gate is open. I send code enforcement officers out there and they say, Mr. Creel, they're cutting the grass outside the gate. So I'm not going to drag somebody into court because they opened the gate to go out and cut the grass. Taking somebody to court is a very serious matter. Yeah, it's a very serious matter, and you have to cite the violation, the section of the code that they're violating. There is no section of the code that is a violation for opening a gate. And I've trained my people not to get in the middle of personal disputes between property owners. We just don't do that. People try to drag us into that all the time, and we're not going to do that. We have to make sure that we're on solid ground when we go out there. I think the biggest complaint has to do with, are they actually using it for ingress and egress? I've not seen any pictures where RVs are going in and out of there. When we go out to investigate, the gate is open, but there are usually people cutting grass, or there are usually people working on the gate because water's gotten into it or something like that. So I'm not going to let my department be used because there's a dispute between property owners.
Despite that, that was what was agreed to on that particular RV park, is that would not be used for that. And I have camera footage as well as a whole Memorial Day party where that gate was left open all weekend for golf carts to come in and out. So when you say it's being used, first of all, what grass outside of there? Because there is no grass outside of there that they're responsible for. It's either also City of Biloxi or Shula on front. So there's nothing on the Pine Grove side that's grass. So look, I'm not going to argue with you a dead horse. I'm just saying there was an agreement made that that was not going to happen, and it's continuing over and over. Now, you're talking one time before that, or right after the storm, which I looked the other way for 4 days before I even sent you. But it is aggravating. The whole point was this Pine Grove already has a ton of traffic. It doesn't need this ingress and egress of these big, huge RVs and their cars.
I'll be happy to look at your video or your pictures, whatever you have. Okay.
I say them every time I send an email, Jerry.
She's got pictures, trust me. Our mic is dying. Sherry Bell is our Director of Parks and Recreation. Sherry, welcome back. Sherry was in the Caribbean just last week on a well-earned vacation, just in time to miss whatever hurricane.
Trust me, it was raining there also. I feel very fortunate this year to have a budget that I'm going to be able to do a lot of maintenance on my facilities and parks. Pennzoil being one of those. We're going to look at replacing the 16-year-old playground equipment out there. I don't know if we'll get to do both of them, but definitely we're going to provide new equipment for one of them. The other thing that Mr. Tisdale has asked me, and we're finally going to do is lighting of the oak tree at the Edgewater Park. I don't know if anyone lives in that area. I actually didn't realize that it was lit until he met me out there one day, and it's gorgeous. I went by there the other day looking at it, so it will be done by the end of the month this year. Of course, you know also that Snyder Center falls under Paul's ward, so we're continuing to do exercise classes here on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays, Tai Chi on Tuesdays and Thursdays. We have the pool and the therapeutic pool. We have pickleball. I don't even know what, I just say every day now because, they ask me and we give it to them, and it's a really popular sport. So if you're interested in pickleball, see that man back there, Mr. Tom Linenberger. He'll hook you up real quick. Yeah, we're in the same predicament as everybody else too. We're shorthanded. I'm short 9 in Parks and Recreation right now, so bear with us when it comes to the playgrounds and the grass cutting at the parks and things of that nature. We're doing the best we can right now. This week, we've had Seafood Festival to set up for the Tunnels to Towers, is that what it's called, Mike? To set up for, so we just, as well as Civic Center, we do all the set up at the Civic Center and clean up, so it's a lot. We have 42 parks and playgrounds and ballparks, also that we cut and maintain for various events. So the other thing we're looking at is the Edgewater sign, replacing that from Zeta. It's in the design phase now, so we'll be replacing that also. So, any questions? Yes, ma'am?
I understand what Mr. Leonard said about not getting any FEMA money, but those stumps from the trees that were cut down, the stumps are dangerous for kids and everything. How fast can we get anything done to take care of those, and then just the branches? I mean, Pensacola Park is a great little park, but it just seems to maybe not get as much attention to the cleanup. It doesn't have grass in it, so you've got lots of leaves and trees.
And branches that fall constantly,
So, yeah,
yes.
fall constantly.
Yes.
Which is great because it's a natural park. But then you also cleared a bunch of stuff towards the southwest side of the
Mhm.
And I don't know, we're gonna maybe plant some new trees or do anything to kind of bring that canopy back that was torn up a lot in the storm. But those stumps really do need to be taken care of.
Jerry, what did Eric, I can't remember what Eric told me, because I've asked him about the stumps and if they were going to come back, and he told me it was all a part of FEMA monies. What I'll do this year is as soon as October 1st comes, I'll get with Eric. If he can't do it, I'll look at my budget and see what we can do using my budget. Because there's about 6 stumps.
It's a nice little park.
It is.
It just sometimes looks like,
You'll check on it? I agree with planting some of the trees back, because there was about 6 or 8 that were destroyed
yeah.
during Zeta.
It happens. But
Yeah.
It'd be nice if we could find a way to plant some new ones to help and clean up what's around there. Because there's a lot of junky stuff, stickers and everything around, and the trees that we do have a lot of vines around them.
Yeah. I'll look into that as soon as we can get back to a full staff and make it a winter project and focus on each park. That's what we try to do during the winter. So with a full staff, and that's what we're doing. Okay.
Paul knows I always say we should put exercise equipment in there, like I have with AstroGym or,
And
and there's got to be some grants or something like from Blue Cross and places like that that can help fund those.
It's odd because I was talking with our financial officer today about grants with AARP and things of that nature. So I am looking into that. I submitted, not an application, but submitted for information for 2 parks today. Pennzoil was one of them, and O'Reilly Park was the other one.
Oh, that's great.
Okay?
Thanks.
And on planting or planting trees, particularly say at Pennzoil Park, that's a good example. And then perhaps over in Eastview and Westview, they have a little park there on the corner of Pass Road. They have a few stumps, same situation, waiting for those to be ground. But that's one reason why we're creating, I guess, a tree bank ordinance, because when developers come in and they clear property, for every protected tree they remove, there's a mitigation. They have to provide 3 in its place, 3 small saplings or whatever. One of the issues is that currently I think the ordinance says, well, if they knock down 3 and they've got to plant 9 in its place, it has to be planted there on that parcel that's being developed. Well, a lot of times there's just going to be a problem later on. So what we're hoping to do is, like you have the land banks, when you purchase time, the same thing with tree. That way the developers would just pay a flat fee for those trees. The city can then purchase those trees and put them wherever they like at Pennzoil Park. So that would help with things like that. Well, exactly. And hopefully some irrigation to go with it, depending on where it's planted. Mr. Leonard covered engineering, but Mr. Allen is not here tonight. So tonight you're the Public Works Director as well. And just the enclave drainage issue. If you'd come up and just, because I know we have a couple of folks here.
I shared some of
From the
earlier call.
Don't say anything more till you get in front of the mic. We have thousands of viewers at home watching this and listening. Other than that, no pressure, no pressure.
Well, I have the mic. You know something I'd like to talk about, and it just went out today out of our crack public affairs folks. We are now, as a result of the census data, we are now at a point where 1 in every 4 people who live in Harrison County live in Biloxi. 25% of the entire Harrison County are Biloxi residents. Keep that in mind when you look at your county tax bill. So if you add Gulfport and Biloxi together, it's a pretty big percentage. So probably our number one, other than picking up, we talked earlier about picking up trash on the side of the road. And we actually, one of the things we bought for next year is yet a 4th truck with a grapple on it that could go along and pick up the trash that somebody else didn't pick up. But probably the other most annoying to the residents as well as us problem is the enclave ditch or the Palafox ditch, whichever one we want to call it. We're talking about a very long, very wide, very deep ditch that's unfortunately getting wider. And that's a problem for the property owners that back up to that ditch. It's a real conundrum for us because we've piped the ditch. One of the problems is unless you get in there and clear it at least once a month, the debris builds up and the drains get clogged up, and then the pipe doesn't work. The pipe is actually under the ground with we call them beehive things up above them to allow the water to go in. But the sides of the ditch, if you will, I call it the shoulders of the ditch, are just little bit by little bit disappearing. And as they disappear, so do people's fences on the back side of that ditch. We've tried a lot of things to hold that ditch, and one of the ones we're going to try next is to use a ground cover, a low-growing ground cover that we could plant all along the ditch and just be able to weed whack it and let it hold. Hopefully that would hold. We've got somebody out there this week giving us a price to do that. But one of the things we talked earlier about some of the residents that we've got to take, that they need to take into account is that a lot of the water that's washing that ditch out is off of the lots and the houses that back up to the ditch. It's just rainwater that's coming out of the ditches and down the hill and wearing out, taking soil away from the ditch. So, I think we're going to try and put together some kind of a package to send to the residents to talk about things you can do to help us hold the ditch, in the way of doing some kind of a little walls or something across the back of your property, so that the water doesn't wash the property back down the ditch again. So anyway, that's that one. Trash. Yes, ma'am. Yes, sir.
Steve,
That's okay, I'll try to speak loud enough. First of all, we're affectionately known as the ditch people.
Yeah.
Those of us who live in the enclave, I'm president of the HOA, and Mike and I communicate a lot, and I have to commend him. The first time I communicated the issue with the ditch to him, he was out there the next day walking the entire length of the ditch. So I know you've seen it firsthand, problems that we've had, and it's been there since 2003 when they did the huge drainage project with that big pipe. We don't have any flooding from water coming across the street, but those little beehives that you're talking about, when they cut the vegetation down, they've told us, and I have some of the residents here, they've just told them outright, our job is to cut it down, not to remove it. And so when they cut it, it just clogs up those things. We haven't had any flooding in homes yet, but we will. And as you said, it's one thing when it erodes city easement property, but now it's affecting private property, and people are having to pay large sums of money to have either their banks rebuilt or their fences rebuilt. We have some of the residents here. It's not happening on my side, thank goodness, but I know you're aware of
Yeah.
it, and I don't know if any of the others would like to speak.
Yes, ma'am.
I live right alongside the ditch, and when I bought my home in the enclave in 2001, I had behind my fence at least 3 to 4 feet. And I could actually mow it myself or have it mowed. And everything worked out fine until the city came in with the big project. And that was in 2003, and I understand the overflow from Edgewater and how that culvert helps. I do understand that, but I was personally told when they removed my fence to do the project that I would really love it because they were going to make the existing ditch very smooth. It would have a slight slope. That never happened. What happened was they put ground cover and seed blankets and never filled it in at all. It's deeper than it ever was before. Fast forward to now, and I have met with the city. I have met with the engineers. I have documentation from the enclave. I'm the secretary of the enclave plus a homeowner of all the meetings since 2003. I have replaced my fence 3 times. I have moved it back 3 times. I have no flower bed between my patio and the fence anymore. I have pine straw there to disguise it. If you come over, it looks like a flower bed. It's not. If you step in it, you go this far down. Right now, I have holes probably this deep on my side of the fence. And I understand your point about saying it's the homeowners, but when I purchased my home, the slope was not there. That is not the runoff from my home that's doing that. It's the silty soil that was originally there and then never replaced as they promised they would. So I think your idea of ground cover has already been done because I have got documentation from the ground cover that they've already done. I was told in 2019 that maybe we should not ever weed that ditch. We should leave the weeds 6 feet tall because they would hold the dirt in. Well, I thought they were doing that this summer because it took that long for them to come and clean it out. And what has happened now is, as Steve said, it is overgrown again, and right before Ida, the drain was full of all the cuttings and everything. And it will flood, but it will not be our fault. So thank you. I hope you can do something, but I'm at the point now I'm so disgusted because I can't landscape my backyard. I can't plant anything. I'm ready to move, honestly. And it will affect property values. I promise you. Thank you.
I'm Gary Pedigo, my wife Sissy. We live the last house on the ditch. We live at the last circle. We're Blue Calafox basically in. So we're on a pie shape. Our front yard ends in the driveway being the street. I mean, we have no yard at the street on the front. But we have over 120 feet of fence on the ditch. That is disappearing. As you walk along trying to mow it, you got to be careful you don't slide into the ditch. You put heavy grass, and the dirt washes out from under the grass, so the grass begins to all dip into the fence all along. Built a new fence last year, replaced the old one, and now it's got all the, it's funny looking across my yard if it does that, along that fence. So I can tell you all the same stuff Pam just said, but I'll just say ditto. It's, we're losing our yard. If you put on ground cover, you might stop the erosion. I doubt it, because we tried that and it's very steep. But that doesn't give me my yard back. What about all the yard I've already lost? And how am I going to recover that? Do I just keep sharpening my yard every year? A little puzzled about the whole thing. Hopefully we get something done.
And I still don't understand this, and I appreciate that you are the city engineer. You used to have a whole department, and They left, but the last city engineer, Christy Levitard, said she had, it was an unbudgeted expense, but said she had found some funds to put cement in the places that were eroding the most, to the point where she called a contractor to get with me to walk the ditch to show them where these places were. And then the next week she left. And of course, she didn't apparently tell anyone at the city whatever plan she had to resolve this issue. But I'm just baffles me that one week they're saying they have funds to cement part of it, and the next week they said, no, there's nothing.
It's a big ditch, a big long ditch, very steep, deep ditch. And job one is to be able to get the erosion stopped so that we don't lose any more. I showed you a picture earlier, a house at 2599, where the fence is in the easement. It's in the drainage easement. So that fence should have been on the property line's in the easement. So
On those houses, from 2599 down to where the ditch makes the right turn, that's not the property line. The property line is across the ditch.
mm-hmm.
He's on his own property, but he's too close to the ditch. But the property line is across the ditch. From my property line, it's across the ditch. If I put a fence up on that side, I'm going to cut that particular, the guy behind me's backyard down to what it really is. But the property line is on the ditch, is far on the south side of the ditch, not the north side.
Mm.
I built it
Okay.
30 years ago.
It's I used the word conundrum earlier.
Oh, it is. You can jetty it.
Yeah. We've
We've
been at this for a lot of years. We'll go at it some more. The one thing I can promise you is that Public Works crew will be there on a regular schedule, cleaning that ditch out and cleaning those beehives off so that the water will run into the pipe that's below the ditch.
Thank you. We appreciate
Yeah.
that.
So I'll see you the next time I'm in the neighborhood. Yeah. So, yeah, I live in Ward 3, and I moved in, and the first thing I dealt with was a giant sinkhole in my backyard. These are problems that we're seeing all over West Biloxi. We recently worked on Hampton Lane, right around the corner from your house, Vincent. And I was appalled when the gentleman's driveway was caving in, and we got in there and dug it up, and there was a 72-inch pipe, drain pipe, that ran across that gentleman's, underneath his sidewalk. Can you imagine what the engineers were thinking when they designed the 72-inch pipe? Obviously, they looked at the amount of drainage that would run through that neighborhood, and that's what the calculations told them they had to have a 72-inch pipe. I mean, I could walk down the pipe without bending over on a 72-inch pipe. There's a lot of places in West Biloxi where there's a huge amount of water that's running, through the Churchill ditch, your ditch, just a huge amount of water that's carried. This would have been tells me this was kind of a swampy, wet area at one time, a long time ago.
It was.
So dealing, again, I'll go back to where I started a while back, and that is we need a master plan here in West Biloxi of how to move forward and to do something about all the old infrastructure. I mean, we're talking water, sewer, drainage, roads. A gentleman spoke to me earlier about the roads, said, my road's in bad shape. Everybody tells me their road's in bad shape. The first thing I do, I go to our paving study. I've got every city street graded between 1 and 9, and based on that, that's where we're doing our paving. I was sharing with you, gentlemen, earlier, how we get money for paving. We actually don't borrow money for paving. We get internet sales. Every time you or your wife, in my case it's my wife, buys something from Amazon, that money she has to write there, where she lives, and that internet sales tax gets credited and eventually works its way back through the state and to us. And so we're getting $1 million a year in internet sales money that is designated for citywide paving. So we've got more paving money than we've ever had, I think. And we're going one by one through the 9s, working our way to the 8s, to the 7s, to the 6s. And then, fortunately, when we do any kind of water sewer work in the area, like in Tanglewood this last year, the residents of those streets that we did water, as a result of that water work and the sewer work that we did, they got new streets. So anyway, I don't know what to tell you about the ditch yet, but I'm learning more about it every day. And one of the things we're going to do is ask the county for more help. I said before, we're 25% of the county. We're trying to remind the county as often as possible and very politely that we pay county tax too, and we'd appreciate a little help. That supervisor for Ward, or supervisor for Area 1 and District 1 and District 5, you need to know who your supervisor is and talk to them as well, because they can be a lot of help.
You're glad to see.
Yeah, is it time for happy hour?
If we just took some of that paving money and just paved the enclave ditch, I'm just saying we might. Thank you, Mike. Chief Miller, thank you for being patient. We don't want to get you upset because you're armed. Thank you, Chief.
Yes, sir. Well, hey, everybody. Appreciate everybody being here. Appreciate the invitation to be here. Before I start, let me introduce Captain Brian Dykes in the back of the room back here. Brian's is our media guy, and also he's the events coordinator, something that we established, I don't know, Brian, a year ago? About a year ago. He's done a great job at it, and unfortunately, he's decided to call it quits and retire on us, so we're going to miss him. So I hope everyone got an opportunity to get this little pamphlet here. Just give it a look over. This is just the calls for service in your ward, and it kind of lays them out for you there by call. If you have any questions about that, just look it over and let me know, and I'll be glad to answer them for you. It pretty well explains itself. It gives you the calls for service, which was 3,904. And this is for 90 days. Incident reports, that means the actual number of reports that were taken, just under 400. Offenses, that's the actual crime that was committed. You see there was 517, and then the arrest, there was 219. So just give it a look over, and I'll answer any questions for you on that. All right, so I was asked to talk about Cruising the Coast. It'll be the October the 3rd through the 10th. This is going to be a record year, no doubt about it. Their number of registered cruisers are already higher. How many, Brian, you remember?
700 over the record.
So it's going to be a truly hectic traffic event. We really won't have a lot of trouble out of Cruising the Coast other than just the traffic. So if you're looking at, and that's going to bring us to what, about almost 7,000 cars?
Correct.
So almost 7,000 registered vehicles. So if you have 7,000 registered vehicles, you can quadruple that for the amount of vehicles that will be here that aren't registered. So that's truly going to be a big event. So I'm just going to ask ahead of time for everybody's patience on that. You can only put so much in that area. And we're basically trying to fill a 10-gallon bucket, with 20 gallons, and it's not going to work. It's going to be hectic, and we're going to do all we can do to keep the traffic moving. And as everybody has seen, we've pretty well done some pretty drastic things to make sure that traffic keeps moving. I know people are going to be inconvenienced because there's going to be so many people here, but it's a different thing for us. We don't mind people going slow, but it's when traffic gridlocks that it causes the problem. So you'll see us doing all we can do to keep traffic moving, even if it's slowly. As long as it's moving, it doesn't gridlock. Once it gridlocks, you're looking at a minimum of 3 to 5 hours to get it ungridlocked. So we do not want that to happen, and we'll do all we can do to stop that from happening. But again, that's October the 3rd to the 10th. There truly will be a lot of money spent here, so that's the upside to it. Any questions on cruising?
Get that question, and I have a comment.
Okay. Yes, sir.
Chief, actually, I have two. Number one, is the Coliseum cooperating this year and opening up their back gate for traffic off?
I have no reason to believe that they're not. We've asked them every year. They've done that. They've been very gracious to do that. I honestly believe that they will. As we get closer to the event, we will certainly make sure that that's going to happen. But the Coliseum has been pretty decent to us about doing that. We usually set up a road through there, as you know, just to make it easier and to kind of keep, the folks, the residents, kind of blocked away from the rest of it there.
My second question about cruising has to do with the Southern Memorial Park. As you are aware, the owners of the cemetery actually lease out their median in front to RV people and things like that. Those of us who have loved ones buried in the cemetery have not been happy about that. Last year, or the year before last, we actually had somebody had gone up there on the new mausoleum front up there, brought the barbecue grill up there, was up there barbecuing. Now, look at the state statutes for desecration of cemeteries. Unless you've got a flaming pentagram on the ground and you're out there gutting oxen, there's not a lot that you can do out there. Is there anything the city can do from an enforcement standpoint to mitigate the way these people utilize the property up there in front? And again, it's a cemetery, and those of us who have loved ones buried there are pretty adamant about it. This is not a conducive situation for a cemetery.
With you 100% on that. And as you probably know, when the first time it happened, we did everything we could do then as far as the law would allow. And you're absolutely right. The statute doesn't give us a lot of room. But what we have done is entered into conversations with the owners of the property, and they have guaranteed us that there will be nothing back by the graves. The vacant property that they have up front is where they plan on parking, and we're going to try to hold them to that. Yes, sir. So fully understand where you're coming from. Yes, sir.
One comment on cruising.
Yes, sir.
Just if I could interject, for those of you folks who get neighborhood passes in those neighborhoods for cruising, I'll get them to you, as I usually do, 7 to 10 days ahead of time. Okay? Thank you.
Yes, sir. All right, the second thing is the camera program. And just out of curiosity, how many of you have heard about the FUSIS camera program registry, if you don't mind? I appreciate that. Thank you, Ms. Donna, for registering. This is something we've been working on for quite a while now. We've entered into a partnership with a company named FUSIS, and what FUSIS does, and there's a little spec sheet up there. This is dated. I noticed on here it says 51 private community cameras. There's many more than that now. So this is dated. This just gives you a few facts about it. But basically what FUSIS does is you can just go online, register any camera that you have with FUSIS. All right, and that doesn't mean that we can look at the camera. What it does for us is that if there's a crime in the area anywhere, we can just immediately look at the registry and determine where there's cameras that we may be able to get some footage off of. I can't tell you how many crimes we solve every day right now with camera footage, whether it be private, some of it belongs to the city, and you've probably seen cameras going up along the boardwalk and other places like that. So there's nothing better than the camera system to try to solve crimes. It gives us a direction to go when we get these cases in. Early in the morning, there's a detective that's going to go through every report that was made every night. The following morning, he goes through it, he looks at it, and if there's solvability factors, it's assigned to an investigator. If it's not, it's assigned to a follow-up investigator. His job is to try to find something that will make it solvable. And first thing he's going to do is look at that registry and see if there's video. He's going to send somebody right out to pick up that video and give us an opportunity to see if we can solve that crime, regardless if it's a felony or a misdemeanor. So please, if you have an opportunity, get registered if you have cameras, and I mean any kind of camera. Your Ring doorbell. We're not interested in cameras like, inside your house or facing your pool. We don't need any of that, but anything that's facing a public area, a roadway, anything like that we can use. So please, if you have an opportunity, do that. Next, Mike had talked about some extra policemen that we're hiring. So currently right now we have 128 positions. We only have 121 filled. So they're added 15 policemen, so that gives us a total of 22 new policemen that we have to find. So it has become very difficult, and you heard the fire chief say the same thing. It's become very difficult to find policemen, mainly because of kind of the poor outlook that a lot of the nation has with law enforcement. So a lot of people don't want to get into law enforcement. You're certainly not going to get rich doing it. We had more success in the past when it was a 25-year retirement plan than we do now. So if you think about it, you have a guy or a gal who retires after 20 years of working somewhere, and so they're say they're in their 40s, mid 40s, and they say I can be a policeman, but when they look at the retirement and say, wait a minute, I'm going to be 70-something years old before I can retire, they're not interested in it. So hopefully one day, maybe you'll have an opportunity to vote on that, and I hope that you'll vote. It's the same with teachers. Teachers are on that same 30-year retirement plan now, and I'm here to tell you that it's too long. It's too long. But it affects us with our hiring for that exact reason. Nobody wants to put 30 years in after they've already retired. And in the police department, we hire a lot of military folks and a lot of retired folks that come in. They have a lot of life experience. They make good cops. And so the 25-year retirement, moving it to 30 has really hurt us a lot. We also have 5 new dispatchers coming on. Has anybody ever been to the dispatch center? Anybody ever had any? You've had your share there. But yeah, dispatching is a truly thankless job. It's an aggravating job. It's a lot of pressure there. Very difficult to keep people there. People put in 5-10 years in a dispatch center, and they are pretty well ready to pretty well burned out. It takes a lot out of you. But we are trying to hire 5 new dispatchers. So if you see anybody that wants a career as a dispatcher or a policeman, please send them my way. Let's see. So, and I'll just give you a couple of stats right quick. We're answering about this time of the year. We're answering about 2,000 calls every 7 days. All right, and that's we're open all day long, all night, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. So we're answering that 2,000 calls every 7 days, and we're doing that with 121 policemen. So it's we're glad to get these new policemen in. And then the homeless issue, that does not appear to be changing a lot. We've had a lot of success with working with the Open Doors Homeless Coalition. We've had a lot of success putting some in apartments. We've had a lot of success finding out-of-town relatives that we can place them with. We've even had some success with finding jobs for some of them. And I think I've probably told this very group this before. I don't think that's a policeman's job, but unfortunately there's nobody else out there doing it. Not other than like the Open Doors Homeless Coalition, who do a good job. But I believe a policeman's job is to deal with the conduct of the so-called homeless and not really their lifestyle or trying to fix it. But unfortunately, that's what we're doing. We have a good bit of help, but it seems like when we place 2 or 3 more show up in town. So it's a thankless job that I'm not sure we're making a lot of headway with, but we're giving it a shot. We're really trying hard to do that. Any questions about anything that I've gone over? Any questions about anything I can answer for you?
You had a big convention in town. How many people?
We did have a big convention in town. We had the Regional Organized Crime Information Center conference here, which is a big deal. You're familiar with them. It's a huge deal. They probably will be back in 3 or 4 years. They have 2 conferences a year. This was the 30th annual homicide conference, and that brought about 500 participants. Actually, it was like 550 participants. A lot of them brought their families with them, so we probably had well over 1,000, 1,500 people here from all over the southern states. Huge success, we think. They said they would be back. They enjoyed themselves. They like the way of life here. So I think they'll be back. Nobody got arrested, thank goodness. We did set up a nice event for them, and I can tell you that that's a drinking bunch of folks. So we set them up. We had the event close to where they could walk back and forth to their hotel room, so that nobody drove, so nobody got arrested. But yeah, I was amazed. I was amazed at the amount of liquor those folks could put away. I think that's it. Unless anybody has any questions, Ms. Donna, some relief maybe for you. We're working on a new noise ordinance. That will be coming. We thought it would be as simple as just rewriting the ordinance and saying, here it is. But unfortunately, our attorneys have told us that the county has to be involved. We have to have some county input from it, mainly because of the Coliseum and the beach. And so that's coming. And it's probably going to be a little stricter than the one we have now.
Yeah, and honestly, look, I don't want anybody to not have a party, but I don't think they should be having a bar and a band like in my front yard. So that's where the problem is.
Well,
it's not just me, it's Biloxi, period.
We're working on it, but I'm glad you told me that, because I was going to refer to you as the party pooper if anybody asked me. I'll lay it all off on you. All right, thank you all very much.
I want to thank everybody who was here tonight to speak to these issues. I want to remind you that next Tuesday, the council has a special called meeting at 1:30 to vote on the budget for next year, and we don't anticipate the millage or tax levy to be increased at all for, I don't know, the 27th year in a row or something like that. The other thing is, following that special meeting at 1:30, as Mr. Creel mentioned, there's going to be a National Flood Insurance Program workshop. So if some of you want to attend that meeting and get some information, that's fine. All of these council meetings, special meetings, and workshops are videotaped. So if you can't make it, they'll be online. I'm available here in just a moment when the meeting ends. If you have any questions, you want to see me, the doctor is in. I've been waiting for 4 years to say that. But I'm not a medical doctor. As my mother would tell you, I'm not the kind of doctor that can help you. So, thank you. Yeah. Thank you very much for coming out tonight. Thank you, Vincent, for videoing this. Yeah, Steve.